An empire that lasted 600 years, a dynasty that commanded 3 continents, a power that made the world tremble. All of it gone. In less than a decade. How could a civilization that defined an era simply vanish? This is the story of the fall of the Ottoman Empire. At its zenith, the Ottoman Empire was the center of the world. From the gates of Vienna to the shores of the Persian Gulf, its power was absolute. Sultans ruled from opulent halls, patrons of unparalleled art and science. The empire was a vibrant mosaic of cultures and faiths. But beneath the gilded surface, cracks were beginning to form. By the 19th century, the empire was known by a new damning name: the sick man of Europe. Territories were lost, the economy stagnated, failing to keep pace with the industrial might of Britain and France. And a powerful new idea was sweeping through its diverse provinces: nationalism, the desire for people to rule themselves. The fuse was lit in the Balkans. In 1912, a League of Nations, Serbia, Greece, Bulgaria, and Montenegro declared war. The Ottoman army, once feared, was outdated and poorly led. They suffered a series of catastrophic defeats. In a matter of months, the empire lost nearly all of its European territory, lands it had held for 5 centuries. The Balkan Wars were a profound humiliation. The shock in Istanbul was immense. The empire was fragile, vulnerable, and desperate for an ally. That desperation would lead them into the greatest catastrophe the world had ever seen: the First World War. In 1914, the Ottoman leadership, led by the ambitious 3 Pashas, made a fateful gamble. They allied with Germany and the Central Powers. They hoped to win back lost territories and restore their prestige. Instead, they opened a Pandora's box of new fronts and new enemies. The Allies, particularly Britain, saw a chance to knock the Ottomans out of the war and secure the sea route to Russia. Their target, the Gallipoli Peninsula. On April 25, 1915, Allied troops stormed the beaches. They expected a swift victory. What they found was a slaughter. Ottoman defenders dug into the high ground, rained down a torrent of machine gun and artillery fire. The campaign bogged down into brutal trench warfare, a mirror of the Western Front. For 8 agonizing months, both sides endured hell. In the crucible of Gallipoli, a new Turkish identity was forged, and a new hero emerged: an officer named Mustafa Kemal. His leadership and tactical genius were instrumental in repelling the invasion. The Allied forces evacuated in failure, having suffered 250,000 casualties. Gallipoli was a stunning Ottoman victory, but it came at a terrible cost, and it couldn't stop the bleeding elsewhere. While Turkish soldiers fought for their homeland in Gallipoli, another fire was being kindled in the empire's vast Arab provinces. Fueled by nationalist ambitions and encouraged by British agents like T.E. Lawrence, the Arabs rose in revolt against their Ottoman rulers. Using guerrilla tactics, they attacked the vital Hejaz Railway, a lifeline supplying Ottoman troops in the south. The Arab revolt opened a massive new front, draining troops and resources the empire simply didn't have. British forces, advancing from Egypt, captured Jerusalem in 1917, a devastating blow to Ottoman prestige. By 1918, the Ottoman armies were in a state of collapse. Defeated in Palestine, Mesopotamia, and the Caucasus, the empire was broken. On October 30, 1918, the Ottoman Empire signed the Armistice of Mudros, ending its part in the war. The terms were harsh. The Allies were given the right to occupy any territory they deemed a threat. It was a surrender in all but name. Soon, Allied warships sailed into the Bosphorus, and foreign troops marched through the streets of Istanbul, the imperial capital for 465 years. The Sultan was now a puppet, his government powerless. The victorious powers began carving up the empire's remains for themselves. For many Turks, this was the ultimate humiliation. Their homeland was being dismembered. But from this despair, a resistance was born. The hero of Gallipoli, Mustafa Kemal, refused to accept the nation's fate. He traveled to Anatolia to organize a nationalist movement. This sparked the Turkish War of Independence, a desperate struggle against the occupying Allied powers, primarily Greece, which had landed an army to enforce its territorial claims. Over 3 years of brutal fighting, Kemal's forces, against all odds, drove the invaders out. With victory secured, Kemal, now known as Ataturk, or Father of the Turks, moved to reshape the nation entirely. In 1922, the Ottoman Sultanate, the institution that had ruled for 623 years, was officially abolished. 1 year later, on October 29, 1923, the Republic of Turkey was proclaimed. A new, secular, modern state rose from the ashes of a multi-ethnic religious empire. The Caliphate, the last remnant of the Old World, was abolished in 1924, severing the final tie to the Ottoman past. The fall of the Ottoman Empire was not just an end, but a beginning. It redrew the map of the world. The lines drawn in the sand by European powers created the modern states of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, setting the stage for decades of conflict. The empire's cultural legacy, however, endures. In its art, its architecture, its cuisine, and the shared history of dozens of nations. It is a story of immense power and catastrophic failure, of tradition and radical reinvention. The story of an empire that died, so that a nation could be born.